Hello there, welcome to Bryan Lomax Movie Talk and my review of Take Shelter, a film I've only just recently seen. It's been on my radar for quite a while, primarily because of I've heard it had some kind of biblical undertones and whatnot, and after having seen the film, I can obviously see why that is the case. But it's the second feature film from writer-director Jeff Nichols, and it is absolutely incredible. It follows this man, played by Shannon, who starts seeing these visions. He has dreams of an impending Armageddon of some kind. So these storms that kind of rain down this oily liquid, which basically turn people into these zombies. And with each dream that he has, he gets more kind of obsessed, more insistent that he needs to rebuild his shelter, his storm shelter, so that when this eventual storm hits, he will have somewhere for him and his family to go to kind of wait it out, so to speak. But obviously he starts looking like a crazy man to his friends, his family, and there is this question of whether or not what he is seeing is genuine prophecy, visions of the future, or is it all in his mind? And with a history of psychological problems running in the family, his mum had schizophrenia, that question, the answer to that question seems to be leaning towards the crazy side of the answer rather than the prophetic side. So obviously, given that storyline there, it does have some clear kind of Noah-esque undertones. Not so much undertones as overtones. It is essentially like a modern day retelling of the Noah story. You don't have to read it that way. You can, if you're not of a biblical persuasion, you can just come to it as purely a story about a man and his family and how he's dealing with this possibility of craziness versus visions of the future. And it is essentially a story about a husband and wife, a marriage. That's the way that director Nichols sees it. He's said in many interviews that for him the key moment is this final scene in which his wife and his child see this storm, and whether that storm is literal or whether it's just all in their mind, the important thing is that the wife is on the same page as the husband. If that's the way you want to come to it, that's perfectly fine. That's clearly the way that director Nichols approaches it. But for those who are of a biblical persuasion, such as myself, obviously I'm going to see the more biblical side of it, which is that this idea of this man who's being sent visions by God, by the higher power, whatever you want to call it, and he has to act upon it. In the same way that Noah did, he has to make a choice. Do I listen to what God is trying to tell me and prepare, or do I ignore it and listen to the people, listen to what everyone else is saying, that it is nonsense, that I need professional help, and put my family in danger as a result of that? And here, obviously, he's a man who listens to the visions. He goes that route. He builds the shelter, and as a result of that, he pays the price within the community of being an outcast, of being mocked and scorned and beaten in one particular instance. So it is that journey of Noah's journey. Essentially, it puts you into the position of Noah, but in a modern day telling, and it kind of gives you a better understanding, I think, of that story, of that biblical story, of those characters, of what they would have gone through, of the stigma that would have been attached to them within the community. And because of that, I think the film has real power. And I think because of this central relationship as well of this husband and wife, the wife being played by Jessica Chastain, who is one of my favourite actresses. I think she's an incredible actor, proving it here as equally as she does it in any of the roles she plays, doing so much at times with so little. Even as director Nichols points out, just one particular scene where her and her husband are talking, and it's mainly the husband who's talking. He's telling her about these visions that he's had, and just the reaction on her face, you know, she's got no dialogue, but everything that she's going on that's internal is all coming out through her eyes, through her expression, and it's just an incredible performance. And the same with Michael Shannon, you know. I reiterate everything I say about Chastain about him. He's one of my favourite actors. He's one of the best actors working today. He's a strange one, Shannon, because when you look at him in interviews and in real life, he doesn't seem particularly outwardly. He seems like, you know, very doesn't like crowds. Maybe he's very good in his own company, but you get him on camera and just something just comes out of him, just pours out of him. He's made to be in front of a camera. So yeah, he gives an incredible performance here. As to all the supporting players, friends of the family, you sympathise with them as well. You know, you can see things from their perspective. So you've got this guy who is his best mate at work, and when he has one of these visions in which this guy becomes infected and attacks him, he distances himself. He does that with everything, like his dog. He has a vision where his dog attacks him, and he puts his dog outside, fences it off. You know, he starts distancing himself. So this best mate, he gets him moved to another department in the place where he works, and that basically ostracizes him. You know, so but you understand why this guy, why the friend would be that way. You know, this best friend for years who's helped him, even at the risk of his own job. You know, he does some things in this film where he puts his own kind of job on the line just to help him, and then suddenly his best friend turns his back on him, distances himself. So you can understand his anger, his hurt to what, you know, the hurt that he's had because of his friend. So there's never any villains in this film where, you know, I can imagine other Hollywood movies putting a complete douchebag in there, you know, someone you want to see get their comeuppance. You'd end up with that character, and that's just not here. The people here are real, they're believable, and they're sympathetic no matter what side of the fence they're sitting on. It's a pretty low budget film as well, it must be said. It is a genre film, what's known as a genre film. You know, it's got elements of sci-fi / fantasy, even horror in it at times, definitely a horror element in there, but the special effects are incredible for the budget. The budget is minuscule given the type of special effects that they've got. They've got, you know, loads of effects work involving these storms, a particular sequence involving all these birds, which is done brilliantly, and it's actually done by the Strauss brothers, who most people will know as the directors of AVP2 Requiem, a film that admittedly isn't a great film, but these guys know what they're doing when it comes to effects work. These guys read the script and were absolutely blown away by it, and as a result they do work here, or that their company, their effects company does work here that really should have been for a much bigger budget film. And I think that's the kind of result you get when there's passion involved. When you have a great script, everybody wants to be a part of it, and that shows in every aspect of the filmmaking process. You know, like there's no lazy shortcuts here. The special effects work is fantastic. So much has been made of the ending with regards to how you interpret it. I personally, because I want to interpret it this way, I see it as the film really being about, along with the marriage, you know, it is about this marriage, but it's also about listening to God, you know, listening to what he's telling you, not just listening but acting on it, and that's faith. You know, this is a film about faith. This guy steps out into faith. Faith is action. You know, when you hear God telling you something, you either ignore it or you act upon it. And like Noah, this guy acts upon it, and as such may indeed save his family, or indeed the planet at some point, the human race, whatever. That's the way I read it. It's the way I want to read it. I think you can read it that way, obviously given its ties to the Noah story. But if you don't, that's fine. You can read it completely differently as well. And they're the kind of films that I really like. I loved this film. I thought it was incredible, as you can tell. And I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. I will definitely be watching this again at some point in the future. What about you though? Have you seen Take Shelter? And if so, what did you think about it? Comment below, let me know your thoughts, and until next time, crack it.